All right, let's go ahead and get started. I see a number of folks jumping on, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for our latest Real Talk session in financial services. Today we are going to be talking about trends and tools for faster risk assessment and scenario analysis. Before we get started, I'm just going to go through a couple of housekeeping items. We've got a lot of content to go through, and we will try our best to keep this to 30 minutes and send you back on to your busy day. Wanted to let you know that we are taking chat Q&A, so you are encouraged to send in your questions throughout the presentation. We will try to get to as many as we can. And if we don't cover your questions, we will absolutely follow up with you. This presentation is being recorded and will be ready within 24 to 48 hours. And wanted to also let you know that there are lots of resources available that you'll see in the On24 platform. So there are some links, a couple of documents for you to go through, and our library of materials specifically for financial services. So please check that out, and let's get right into it. I am Melanie Marks, and I am the Director of Industry Marketing for Snowflake. I also wanted to welcome our presenters today from User Ready, Jim Houghton and Rashmi Shettigar. Thank you both for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Jim and Rashmi, welcome again. And before we get into our presentation, let's talk about User Ready just for a minute and the partnership between User Ready and Snowflake.
Sure, I'll take that. User Ready was founded back in 2011, and we grew out of the financial services industry. As our name implies, we focus on the user first, working to take data and then transform it into powerful business insight. We work with key partners to develop robust solutions for our clients, and Snowflake is our key cloud data warehouse partner. In addition, you'll be seeing in the demonstration we'll be showing you today that Tableau, the data visualization leader, is also a key partner of ours, and we are Tableau's service partner of the year.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So let's get into our agenda for the day, and I wanted to make sure here that we are going to go through, and this will be largely Q&A driven, so very conversational. Again, we encourage you to submit your questions, and please don't hesitate to ask your questions. We'll try to get to them at the end. And most important, I think very exciting, we're going to be covering a demo, which is the Risk Manager portal from User Ready. So please stay on and watch the demo. Again, we'll try to get through all of this within 30 minutes, and let's get right into it. So I'll start by reading a quote here from our friends at PwC. Traditional risk management focuses on the likelihood and impact of risks. Increasingly, a crucial third dimension is being recognized and measured: risk velocity, or the speed at which an exposure can impact the organization. So at Snowflake, this really rings true, and never more so now for financial services. We often talk about making it easy to amass all of your data, enabling rapid analytics, and quickly making data insights available to all of your users, consumers, and systems that need them. Jim, any comments on this quote here?
Well, certainly, if you go on to the next slide, here's some thoughts that I had from the 10 years it's been since the financial crisis. And, I worked at a large bank at that time, helping guide our risk management teams by constructing views and monitoring exposures. And I've listed on this slide some of the things that we learned from that difficult time. And, the first is that as a policy matter, banks were incentivizing short-term risk-taking. And I think most all of them have learned their lesson now and have changed to better align incentives with longer-term corporate goals. So that's one key policy change. And then in addition, the banks didn't actually realize that, that a lot of their holdings in various asset classes were connected, and that there was actually various aspects that became more highly correlated in the time of a crisis. And so risk models had to be changed to better, assess the risk in such a volatile time as we saw in that era. Plus, the increased complexity of financial instruments and derivatives required risk systems to be better tooled to correctly evaluate the actual risk exposures. And then finally, getting to the point of the PwC quote, this fifth point that I've mentioned here is that real-time analytics and the speed at which you can see your exposures is really critical. The velocity of trading that so many firms do today through the use of computer trading and algorithms means that if you wait for overnight batch systems, which is what many risk systems were based on in 2008, you're just not going to get the insight in the time that you need it. So the speed and consolidation of risk exposures is really important in today's environment. And Snowflake is a great example of the type of infrastructure that can provide the ability to get to that next level of real-time insight.
All right, thank you for that. So here's another quote from Forrester. Harness data buried in your systems to become insights-driven. People evangelize about data with good reason. Much of the insight you need is already sitting in your data silos. And Snowflake has been saying it for years. Data is your biggest asset. If data is the new oil, payment data is the best quality oil. And really, data is the irrefutable proof of how your customers live their lives. But lots of financial services firms aren't using their data effectively, sending out blanket marketing offers, failing to improve customer experiences, and failing to get insights into the right decision makers. So let's talk specifically about risk management and what is so different today.
Well, I think that quote from Forrester helps sum up both the bad news and the good opportunity. The risk systems today are very sophisticated, and they've taken in and incorporated a lot of the lessons that we've learned from past crises. But the challenge now is to consolidate the data silos and turn that data into valuable business insight across the silos, and to take account of real-time changes during the day based on trading activity and other changes that may happen around the world in real time. And then finally, the thing that makes it the hardest for a lot of large firms is there are so many systems of various sorts that are hard to connect together. And the only way you can get true risk management insight is to make sure that all of those connections are made and make it a nimble risk management system. And that is still a challenge today. In this slide here, this is an example, a simplified example of how a large asset manager handles data aggregation today. And from the upper left, where a variety of trade order management systems bring in transaction activity, and then it goes through a number of iterations before it finally gets out the lower right-hand side into Tableau and to analytical reports. And because of all of these processes, you can see that what may have been real time at one point is at best intraday updates, and still silos may exist because, in fact, this slide is only the fixed income portion of the equation, and then there are other systems that would need to be brought in for equities and futures and derivatives and such. So the real challenge here is to bring this all together in a real-time basis. And we do believe that cloud data warehousing can become a key way to break down some of those silos and make it more of a simplified picture.
All right, thank you for that. So how are financial institutions really preparing and responding to these risk scenarios?
So what risk managers seek today is really pretty straightforward. It's just not easy, and getting there is the hard part. And we see that the challenges of the modern risk management picture are to really focus on a data management and preparation strategy that can bring all of these data sources together in a consolidated picture in real time. And this may require re-engineering and re-architecting of data design to accomplish what the risk manager is looking for. And then once that foundation is laid, the focus needs to be on the risk manager's user experience, their user productivity and performance, and finally adopting the result so that they can be as efficient as possible. So we've laid out here the three categories that I mentioned in the last slide. You focus first on the user experience and what the business insight that the user is looking for. And there are a number of technology applications that we may bring to bear to help enhance that user experience. And then we focus on user performance. And we have a number of tool sets here, and we'll focus on Snowflake today as a way to enhance user performance. And then it's only as good as the way that the user actually adopts and is able to efficiently use the solution that you provide. And we have a number of ways that we will enhance, and we're looking to enhance user adoption today that we hope to get to at the end of our presentation.
And I think it's critical here to note and really reiterate here the variety of siloed data systems that we're talking about. And then lots of financial services organizations, you know, it's really impeding delivering fast and affordable data-driven answers that we talk about so often. So having your data, again, all in a single location, you don't have to struggle with integration, interoperability, and really this kind of gets to this notion of a modern data architecture that we'll get into a little bit later. So let's move on and let's talk about a real example here of what we're talking about. And we're going to also get right into the demo. So Jim, let's get to it.
Let me just, I'll give a little background for this. So this is a risk manager portal that was developed by UserReady using technology components that you'll be seeing here from Tableau software and Snowflake. And the use of Tableau in its embedded format allows for easy addition of new content and allows the portal to be customizable to the way that the user wants to interact with their information. You'll see widgets that can be changed and placed the way that the user desires to see them. And then user performance is enhanced by the use of Snowflake's modern cloud data warehouse platform, which offers the ability to use many different technology choices. So it really opens up the IT department to decide what technology best suits the solution the user is looking for, and not be limited by the company's in-house technology infrastructure. So these are two key elements of the solution that we'll be looking at right now.
Okay, great.
In this demonstration today, I am going to show the development of a personalized risk manager portal for a major asset management firm. We first focused on the user experience and the journey that the risk managers were experiencing today, and then developed a customized portal that would greatly enhance their user experience and their performance and productivity. Based on this information, we chose Tableau software, and we used an embedded format into this portal, which allows for new content to be brought very quickly into use by the risk managers. It's also allowing for customizable content to the user's liking, so that Jennifer can see exactly what she wants to see and where she wants to see it. So, for example, she's put company news and forms to bring on new customers down on the bottom, along with access to news as well as compliance issues. And then on the top, she has provided a number of widgets that are specific to her risk management functions. So, for example, here she can look at that are consolidated by country, and she's able to then drill down and look to see that in the United States, while there's an overall losing position that is mainly related to these 3 or 4 stocks here that she may want to monitor more thoroughly. She can also then go up a level and see a convenient heat map of risk statistics for each of her funds over daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly timeframes, and have convenient red and green and color codings so that she can quickly focus in on areas of risk that need her further attention. And then she can see the voluminous data points that are provided by her risk management system that always is computing the results of scenario analyses and value at risk calculations for her portfolios. And currently, today, she's especially concerned about the impact that higher interest rates might have given the recent Federal Reserve increase in interest rates. And so she sees that the 200 basis point parallel shift in interest rates has increased in risk value considerably, and she might want to look at that further. And so then she's able to drill down very quickly and see that there's one specific portfolio that makes up the vast majority of that risk exposure, and further is able to see that this relates to holdings in subprime C-rated debt instruments, as well as bank stocks, which are subject to interest rate shifts that can impact them negatively. So you can see all of this is available to her at her fingertips and has greatly enhanced her user experience. This was also built using modern cloud data warehousing technology in the form of Snowflake. And by Snowflake's design, it offers the ability to be agnostic to technology vendors, and its cloud deployment minimizes the dependence on the technology infrastructure available at the asset management firm. Yet it provides great scale and a greater and a much more value than a typical data warehousing solution would provide. I'd now like to turn things over to my colleague Rashmi, who can speak to you more about the technology underpinning this portal.
All right, Rashmi, this next section is for you, and let's talk about the technology used to bring this awesome solution together.
Sure, Melanie. So I'll now walk you through all the end-to-end solution architecture used in developing this dashboard that was just demoed. So as you can see, this architecture is divided into 3 tiers. The first tier is the data procurement layer. So we have multiple types of data sources. They can be structured in the terms of flat files or database files, or they can be semi-structured data like a JSON file, for example. So in our case, we mostly had flat files like the CSV files that was used in coming up with this solution. These files were cleaned and prepped based on the dashboard requirement, like as to what a risk analyst would like to see on a day-to-day basis or would like to measure. And so multiple transformation activities were performed on this data. So post this, we now moved to the second tier, which is the data warehouse layer. So here we've used the cloud-based Snowflake data warehouse platform for building our data warehouse. So based on the dashboard requirements and the data analysis that was performed with the data that was available, we identified the dimensions, the facts that would be needed in order to develop the solution and modeled the data accordingly. So once the data model design was completed, we built the database schema, the database and its tables in Snowflake using the online Snowflake client. So once this was done, the data was loaded into the Snowflake tables. Here, as Snowflake is a cloud-based platform and it is mostly pay-as-you-use service, we did not have to worry much regarding the capacity planning in terms of setting up the infrastructure or the hardware needed. So what we had to do was configure the data warehouse based on our requirements and go ahead with the development. And we could straight away do that, and the learning curve involved was pretty smooth. So after this, we then moved on to our third tier, which is the reporting layer. Here, we've used Tableau Desktop as a reporting platform to build the dashboards. Tableau provides the Snowflake connector to connect to the Snowflake data warehouse. So once this connection has been established between Tableau and Snowflake, data can be accessed seamlessly. We can have either live connection to this data or we can use generate extracts. And dashboards can be built using this data based on what the requirements are for the risk analyst, and the risk analyst can then go ahead with the real-time analytics that based on what they want to see. So this is the entire process of building this demo dashboard, and Snowflake and Tableau have been instrumental in helping us achieve the desired result that we all just saw. So now let us look at some of the challenges that a traditional data warehouse or an on-premise data warehouse can have. So the first challenge is concurrency, painfully slow analytic cycle. So a lot of financial services firms have dozens of lines of business, and they are trying to access the same underlying data. This has considerably increased the system load, and thus it increases the response time for any analysis to be done, and thus slowing down our analysis that needs to be done on a real-time basis. So this also results in a lot of frustrated users. So concurrency is one of the big challenges that has been that we've been facing. Next is scalability. So limited ability to answer complex questions. So scaling on demand is a challenge due to, if we have an on-premise infrastructure and we are seeking to run some complex query and our infrastructure does not support that kind of query execution, then we will not be able to go ahead with it. And that is one of the challenges, scalability. Resiliency. With resiliency, it's the inability to provide business continuity. So we seek to have continuous data and service availability. However, there are times when there are failure or disaster, recovery systems that needs to be in place. And but with traditional databases or traditional data warehouse systems, this can be a little challenging getting this into place. And the last challenge here is the security. With time-consuming custom security. So a lot of times, we have to spend a lot of time in terms of defining the entitlements and getting the security in place as to who in the organization has access to what kind of data. So a lot of time needs to be spent on this when we are using a traditional data warehouse or an on-premise data warehousing system. Now that we've looked at all these challenges, let us see what we expect from our modern data warehouse. So today's demands require modern data warehouse that helps us in mitigating the risk of scalability, reducing cost, and improving decisions. What we basically need is a platform that helps us to focus on analytics rather than worrying about the technologies and getting that into place. Support all data. So we have a lot of different kinds of data available today, like semi-structured and structured data, and we want to have the capabilities of supporting all these data and performing our analysis on them. Scale on demand. Like we want to be able to run ad hoc queries, complex queries as and when they come up without having to worry about the infrastructure or making any upgrades. So we want to have the scale on demand facility and also to serve all our users. So we want to cater to all our users all the time without having the contention issues leading up to slow analysis or increased waiting times. So this is where Snowflake really helps us. It being a cloud platform, it provides on-the-fly scale-up and scale-down service. As this is a pay-as-you-use service, it reduces the cost immensely. We just have to depending on if there's a need of running complex queries, we just scale up our scale up the service that we are using, or else again we can come back to what we are using, because this is a pay-as-you-use service. Also, Snowflake also supports concurrency, which is unlimited concurrency because of its multi-cluster shared data architecture. It operates multiple users to access the data simultaneously without having any performance contention. So thus Snowflake and Tableau has helped together to put this solution in place.
Rashmi, thank you so much for that. I think our audience will find that super helpful. So, Jim, a lot of this sounds maybe like this is a bit too good to be true here, but what are we talking about in terms of time to value and speed to value? What's the reality here?
Well, I'll let Rashmi speak to her experience with this specific application that we've put together, and then in other experiences that she's had with Snowflake and as well.
So yeah, so here the demo solution that was just presented. So it took us less than a month in coming up with this solution. So this involves end-to-end development that was done, right from modeling the data to building the data warehouse and then developing the dashboard in Tableau. So as you can see here in the table, this gives you an overview of such kind of reporting projects as to the task and the deliverables involved. So the one that I'm highlighting here, the steps, which is creating Snowflake database schema, dimensions, and fact tables, the data preparation and data loading into Snowflake tables. So this is the step where I can say that has tremendously improved our execution time, because this Snowflake being a cloud platform has we can directly go ahead with our development activities without, as already mentioned, without having to worry much about setting up the infrastructure in place, doing capacity planning. So I would really attribute it to Snowflake for helping us, reduce the development time greatly.
Thanks so much, Rashmi. Let's get into the future here and what it looks like, say, over the next couple of years. And if you had to make a prediction, Jim, what would you say?
Well, it's always hard to predict the future, especially in risk management, but we spent a good bit of time looking at the past and what we learned from the past, and then we've seen some examples of what the present day risk management environment is looking like. A couple of future developments that we think have a lot of promise are in the whole area of artificial intelligence, and this gets to the user adoption portion of this. That if you create a great new platform, but the user is not getting how to use it, you're not going to be successful. And for example, here, this is an example of an adoption bot that we've created using artificial intelligence for a portal for a group of users not that different than the risk portal users that we were looking at for the demo that you just saw. And this allows you to go through and understand how to use the portal, and takes you carefully step by step through it, and learns how you interact with the portal so that it can continue to enhance your experience and your adoption. So that's one word for the future that we are actively pursuing today to increase user adoption. Secondly, sort of on a related front, we really are excited about the promise of natural language generation, where it can crystallize the business insights that you may be already visualizing from, for example, a complicated but very information-rich visualization here for a portfolio rebalancer that a portfolio manager would use. And then we've linked that to a natural language generator, which can pick out specific nuggets of insight and put it in text form so that that can provide additional insight to an already strong data visualization. And we think that will provide really enhanced usability for end users as well. So those are two future aspects that we're really excited about.
Okay, great. So we are at the bottom of the hour here, but I do want to leave just a couple of minutes here to talk about closing thoughts and something that we can leave our audience with to think on. Here's Snowflake's point of view here. Legacy systems are just too slow and expensive for performing deeper and faster compliance analysis, and instead of focusing on innovation, we see a lot of financial services organizations more funding defensive efforts in the name of compliance, and there really is a better way. And hopefully you've seen some great solutions and great ideas that kind of show you that there is a better way. So this really isn't a choice, and with modern day solutions, there are many opportunities. And the opportunities come in the form of reducing time, cost, improving revenue, and providing a better customer experience all the way around. Jim and Rashmi, I'll ask you just for a couple of last-minute thoughts here. What would you like our audience to leave with?
Well, I hope this has been informative and instructive, and we really do think there's a lot of the great raw materials to make risk managers more productive and effective, but the focus has to be on creating solutions that are focused on their needs and combining all of the data together in an elegant way to get them to the needs that they really require. And we're seeing the light at the end of that tunnel, and we're excited about where that can come out.
Great, thank you so much. Rashmi, I do have a question that has come in for you, and this goes back to what you were discussing earlier. What kind of transformations did you do on the CSV files, and what tools did you use?
The kind of transformations that were needed is to first look at what each of the columns in a particular table, understanding what is the data type of that table, and if there is any data, for instance, if it's an integer field, and if you had some kind of string there, so data loading would be an issue because it will not allow us to load that data. So identifying such kind of data issues was something, some of the transformations that were involved. So here, we utilized some of Alteryx capabilities and some of Excel cleanup capabilities to perform the transformations.
Okay, great. Hopefully that answers our audience question there. And Jim, I'll ask you one question and then we'll wrap up. How have you seen attitudes within the financial services industry towards the cloud-based services changed or evolved over recent years?
Well, that's a very good question. I think certainly when I was back at the large banks 10 years ago, as I was referring to, I think there was very much of a view that sensitive data had to be on premise, and that was the only way that they could retain security. I think now with the advent of true mission critical, secure data platforms in the cloud, there's a realization that it can be more cost effective and possibly even more secure to have a cloud-based data strategy. And there's a slow movement towards that. It's certainly not done, but there are definitely examples in the industry of financial firms that are going that direction, and I'm sure we'll see that accelerate as time goes on.
All right, so I think this will bring us to just a few minutes over our presentation. Thank you so much to our audience for joining us. Thank you very much to our presenters from UserReady, Jim Houghton and Rashmi Shettigar. Thank you so much for your time. And you do see our name and contact details on the screen here. If you would like to follow up, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we will wrap up this Real Talk session. Thank you very much and have a great day.